Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening. And we have some really serious news developing. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, Stuart. Got my binoculars wiped off, and I'm looking now.
Yeah, this is escalating rapidly. Folks, if you have not prepared, you have to, or you're going to wish you hadn't, or wish you had, I should say. This is getting very, very serious, and it can escalate overnight. This is a very serious warning we're attempting to give people, and there's also the possibility of a banking shutdown as well. And so if you haven't taken a little cash out so that you got something to operate with, then you better. And things are really escalating rapidly. Before the show, Larry, you were reading me the headline. Let's go over those or the things that you were lining up, and then we can go back and take apart each one and explain what's really happening over there. It seems like everything is out of control right now. What's the latest on at least the headline bullets?
Okay, yeah, because this is discounting now the surprise attack in Syria, Aleppo, of the gas attack, the chemical weapons attack. This is with an exception of the border trouble we're having as they're trying to rush our borders and all of that. I thought that was bad this morning, but this thing with the Ukraine has literally gone ballistic in a number of hours. And here's some bullets. Here's some headline bullets, and you can go to Hal Turner, and this is at the end of his postings for today so far, reporting Russian jamming of EU, Europe, and NATO communication channels in progress. Ukraine martial law is in effect. Borders are closed. Ukraine convenes ministry to declare a state of war with Russia. Ukraine Air Command up, fighters in the air, Ukraine military being called out, all reserves prepared to go to field. The Russian embassy in Kyiv has been firebombed. There are reports also that Russia has closed all of the borders surrounding, basically blockading the Ukraine on the ground and on the sea. And, of course, we get into it later, but there's been a naval battle between Ukrainian, the Navy and the Russian Navy, and a lot of trouble there. Also, report being added, I can't confirm this, but I'm just telling you, this is what it says. U.S. doomsday planes up, night watch up, looking glass planes up, now airborne over continental United States. Trump being recalled to Washington from Florida and to another undisclosed location. Also says that Ukraine now in a state of war between the Ukraine and Russia to be declared by their parliament, which is underway. Also reports, and we can't confirm it, Stuart, but reports that Putin has already threatened NATO, Europe, and even the UK with being nuked, and has warned the U.S. and told them to stay out of this war.
Well, that's kind of a light load there you just read. I tell you what, folks, we can vet a lot of this, and some of it we can't. But we can say, I think, that the sources so far have appeared to be absolutely correct. They've been vetted by other sources, even over there in Israel. Some of the sources are on Fox News or on CNN. They tried to hide all this stuff from the American people. It didn't work. The news leaked out anyway, and evidently they didn't want anybody in the United States to know what was really going on over there. But now we do. So let's back up just a little bit. I want to read I can find it. This was a reply on Hal Turner's site. Somebody wrote in. Now, this, of course, is totally unvetted, but their claim is that something was. It sounds to me like they were going to blow the bridge or something. This is. I want your take on this, Larry. Very important info appeared briefly on Russian media before it was scrubbed. That a NATO SADM. Do you know what that is? SADM? Is that an explosive device?
It could be.
Anyway,
I'm not real positive on that.
I'm not sure either. Possibly a diver deplorable device was being transported to the Kerch Strait to be used on the Crimean Bridge. The device was being tracked by the Russians, and they knew it, had been loaded onto a Ukrainian tug that was escorted by 5 warships, 3 in the Black Sea, including 1 NATO vessel and 2 waiting in the Sea of Azov. I guess that's how you pronounce it. This is why the Russians acted. They never react with force and have never blockaded the Sea of Azov. Ground attack jets and helicopter gunships plus warships armed with ASM and torpedoes were waiting. So that is maybe why they rammed one of the boats. A Russian naval vessel rammed one of the Ukrainian boats. So I don't know exactly how all this is going to play out. What's your take on that, the possibility of that? It does seem odd that the Russians would do this unless they were provoked into it.
Well, what's kind of interesting too, Stuart, is the fact that that NATO just finished the big war drill, right there in the Black Sea off of that region, remember?
Yes.
And the Russians were actually scraping, if you will, the NATO ships. Matter of fact, someone sunk a NATO vessel down by Norway. It was a Norwegian NATO cruiser, and it's underwater pretty much, turned over. And, all of a sudden, we got a report, remember, that the U.S., that Trump was bringing back a lot of war materials out of that region suddenly and quickly. And now, possibly there was a NATO plan to blow this bridge. I really don't know that. Seemingly, there's been a lot of threats because we know that Russia has been involved in what you call, and it's, I believe every word you say, these energy wars. And there's a big energy war occurring in Syria, and the same thing with Europe. And so if they did try to blow the bridge, and it makes some sense, I don't have the data, I don't know that, but the Russians confronted the Ukrainian vessels, and there was one rammed another, then opened fire. Reportedly, the Ukrainians exchanged fire with Russian naval vessels, and a number of Ukrainian vessels were either completely stopped, boarded by Spetsnaz troops, and seized or sunk. And there's a lot of conflicting reports. And as soon as this began, all the ships around Odessa port hit the sea, and they said the entire Ukrainian Navy has gone to sea now with orders to attack any Russian vessels that they come into contact with. So basically, it appears we're looking at a state of war that exists right now between Russia and the Ukraine.
Okay. Are there any reports at all that you have seen about the Russian naval forces setting sea all over the Russia? And anything in there? Because probably they are setting sail. They like to get them out of port in case there's a nuclear war.
Well, the
so that they can respond.
The reports that that I've been getting, and some of it's out of Israel, Ynet News, and other sources. Danoon is doing. He did a big report on the Syrian gas attack. We ain't even talked about that yet, but it appears that a lot of Russian forces are on the move, and it appeared to be on the move even before this, Stuart. Remember, there was some intel reports that they thought that Putin was preparing for an attack on NATO.
Yes. Well, that may be exactly what's coming. And if if the Russians attack NATO or vice versa, Ukraine is a member of NATO, is it not?
I don't believe it is yet. I think it's.
Was that one?
It's under protect. Remember, Ukraine was given protection by the U.S., a treaty, I believe, and
yes.
I'm not sure. I don't think they're NATO yet, but they're bumped up right a bunch of NATO area
bases,
right there.
Yeah. Huh. Well, anyway, this is how the thing went down, folks. The naval blockade. It starts out, Russia has opened fire upon and captured Ukraine naval vessels. 6:06 p.m., Ukraine declares martial law, calls military reserves, prepare for call-up. Flash traffic is hitting intel circuits now that a significant naval battle is shaping up between the Ukraine and Russia at the Kerch Strait Bridge between the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Reporting is sketchy right now, but here is what we do know. Both Ukraine and Russia border at the Sea of Azov, which is basically a gigantic bay off the Black Sea between the two countries. Ukraine needs access to the Sea of Azov to reach its eastern seaports. Russia needs access to the Sea of Azov to reach some of its western seaports and to reach Crimea. The Kerch Strait is a narrow opening in the landmass which separates the Black Sea from the Sea of Azov. After Russia absorbed Crimea, the Russians built an enormous bridge across the Kerch Strait to facilitate import-export of goods and services, utilities, gas, oil, and electric. There's your energy between, Russia and Crimea. Here's what we think we know. The Russian Coast Guard vessel allegedly rammed a Ukrainian vessel at or near the Kerch Strait Bridge. Well, we just covered that. They were evidently going to blow the bridge or something, possibly. So Russia decided they were going to stop that. In response, Russia positioned a large freighter tanker across the opening beneath the Kerch Strait Bridge that blocks all transit between the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Then the Ukrainians sent naval warships. The Russians also sent naval warships, attack helicopters, and warplanes. Ukraine is calling the closure of the Kerch Strait, a blockade, and saying it is an act of war. Ukraine is sending additional warships at full speed to the area. Russia is now sending additional military assets to the area. Whatever is going to happen, it is likely to happen within hours, and we could see a full-scale naval battle between Ukraine and Russia today. Then at 11:45 a.m. this morning, 5 Russian Su-30, 2 Su-25 fighter jets make a low flight over the area. And then update, spokesman at 11:50, spokesman of the Naval Forces of Ukraine just confirmed 3 Ukrainian Naval Force vessels are still waiting to cross the Kerch Strait. They're still blocked from entering the Sea of Azov. Then at 12 noon, Ukrainian Navy moves to combat alert in response to Russian attacks on its shipping and closure of the Kerch Straits. Russia is imposing a de facto blockade of Ukraine's southeastern ports, which is defined in international law as an act of war. Or you might remember, Larry, when we heard that Iran was going to block the Strait of Hormuz, which may now come. This may be the beginning of the Armageddon script. China's been making a lot of noise about taking Taiwan. They've been building their islands out there in the sea and threatening U.S. naval vessels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this whole thing is ramping up to World War III, folks. You got to remember what's really going on here. Global deep state wants World War III. They've been dying for war with the Soviets. These people are idiots. They ought to read their Bibles, because it is Russia and her allies that take out the United States. There's virtually nothing left of the United States at the end of World War III. We're taken out. It's right there in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So I got a feeling that all of what we're watching is going to escalate. Israel may take advantage of this and go after Damascus. They already went after the S300s. I can't imagine Israel's going to allow them to refurbish those. So I just got a feeling. What do you think, Larry? I just think this whole thing may be coalesce into the war that they just want this war so bad. And of course, Trump's been trying to avoid it, or at least on the surface, it appears that he's been trying to avoid it. What do you think?
Well, what's interesting, too, is, and I'll let you get back in a few minutes to some more on this war, possibly starting up in Ukraine, but let's run right quick here and talk about what's been happening in the Middle East shortly.
Yes.
Here recently, there was an attack around Damascus by unidentified aircraft. Israel said they didn't do it. The Syrians said Israel didn't do it. And then we found out that there's a headline necrophile says U.S. Air Force takes control of Syrian skies with an unidentified airstrike on Iranian targets, said U.S. game changer in Syria after repeated unidentified aircraft attacked an Iranian target in Syria, and the U.S. Air Force has now opened the window for continued Israeli airstrikes within Syria. Now, there was also some intel that said to repair these S300 systems, whatever was causing the problem, after that, that it would take possibly 20 to 30 days. So then we find out that, matter of fact, Hal Turner posted it, and there was also on, I believe, Ynet News, said that France had a deployed Signet ship to Syria, and it had new electronic gear to jam the S-300 systems for possible attacks coming on Syria. And this is setting amongst the USS Harry Truman strike group steered in the Mediterranean. So here we are. We've got also this Russian fleet off the Syrian coast. We've got all this going on, and now this morning we had the report of, and this report we vetted, by the way. It's not just Hal Turner. We vetted it through Israeli news and some other news sources that there has been a reported chemical weapons attack, some type of toxic gas attack on Aleppo, and it reportedly has been identified as coming from the U.S. and NATO-backed forces, the rebel forces in Idlib. So now, that's a flashpoint. This has been growing all day. They tried to keep it away from social media and letting it get out on the internet, but it did anyway. It's starting to show up now, hours later, and we've got that. Now I'll go ahead and let you go back to the Ukraine and some more on what's going on there.
Okay, it says Ukraine has accused Russia of ramming one of its boats. Well, it did, but the Russians claim they had a reason to ram it. You're not going to blow our bridge, basically, I guess one could word it. The openly aggressive actions occurred as three of its vessels sailed from the Black Sea port of Odessa to Mariupol, I guess, in the Sea of Azov. Then it said, but Russia said the ships were in its waters and accused the Ukrainians of provocative actions. So the Russians have now blocked, as we said, with a tanker, huge tanker underneath the bridge. It spans that bridge pretty much. So nobody can move in or out without actually plowing into this huge cargo ship that they've used. By 12:21, Ukrainian ships start to move from the Kerch Strait, but Russians threaten to use weapons if the ships will not stop. 12:34, border checkpoints between UK and Russia, or Ukraine and Russia, have now been closed. That was around noon today. It is unknown if this is related to the incident currently unfolding. Obviously, it must be. Okay, then at 1:46, Russia has opened fire upon Ukraine vessels. 1:54, artillery boat U-175 is damaged, lost its engine, one wounded. Ukrainian Navy responded with deadly fire to protect itself. Ukrainian forces aboard the disabled Ukrainian vessel are firing back heavily at the Russian forces. The boat is now sitting duck. That was at 1:56. At 1:59, 4 minutes later, full battle between Ukrainian ship and the Russian Navy. By 2, the Ukrainian ships are currently firing back. Then an update at 2:34, Russian special forces have now captured 3 Ukrainian naval vessels. Reports on social media that Ukrainian naval vessels are leaving their bases in Odessa now with orders to attack and destroy any Russian naval vessels they encounter. Okay, then at 3:13 this afternoon, this is, I guess, our time, Eastern Standard Time, Russia used special forces from helicopters backed up with helicopter gunships for covering fire to capture the Ukrainian naval vessels. Russia has started blocking land borders with Ukraine, no civilians. 3:15, jamming of military communications, which Larry just said, in Europe has begun. Now, this is interesting. Jamming of military communications in Europe has now begun. It sounds to me, Larry, this is going to be a war with NATO. You know, Putin has repeatedly said that, you know, you guys over there at NATO, why are you putting all these bases right along my border? Which they have been doing right along. And not only that, they have these chemical weapons and biological, not weapons, but, well, what would you call them? Laboratories, I guess, research laboratories. And Putin has repeatedly said, I don't want those on my border. It'd be like Canada doing all of this on our border. What would we do? I mean, it's incredible that Putin has had the patience that he actually has had. And I'm no fan of Putin. I'm just telling everybody Putin is probably the world's greatest military chess player the world has ever seen. We're messing with the wrong guy. And the American military, I got to tell you, I think they're awful stupid. They're getting involved in something they have no knowledge of. They better read their Bible, because if they read their Bible, they might change their tactics a little bit. The Bible does not have much to say for mighty Babylon the Great or its leaders, all of them. Nobody's exempt. Anyway, so if they're jamming Europe, what do you make of that?
Well, what I make of it is if they apparently are believing that this was the beginning of a move from NATO, whether clandestine, in other words, secretly, or covertly, to begin something. And they were prepared, apparently, because they had in place, apparently, and we know they did. We know that Russia, over the last number of months, has moved a lot of missile systems and all of this into play, along the area there with the Baltic states, the NATO states. And they were saying that NATO was moving materials there also. So they were prepared, and I would think that if they are already electronically jamming NATO communication lines, military communications, then this plan is to go all the way if they have to. They're going to stop whatever NATO was involved with, or, on the other hand, they're going to attack NATO.
Yeah, there could be a blitzkrieg operation going on here very, very soon. I know there were some prophets who said that Russia, all of a sudden, without much warning, decided to basically take Europe, and it's a massive battle, and humanity being fallen. I don't know what to say about it, folks. I really don't. Jesus Christ told us the only way out was Him. Nobody's paying any attention to what He said. So basically 90% or more of humanity is going to get destroyed. We're not going to get through this. All we got to do is read the Bible. Anyway, President Trump, returning to White House early, has departed Mar-a-Lago at 4 p.m. So he's probably already not necessarily at the White House. I don't believe that's where he's going to go. They may know that this is the beginning of a war. We've got this deal going on the border. We've got fifth column operations that have been invading the United States for years and years. And nobody has done anything about it because Washington is complicit. The global deep state and the United States deep state are all complicit in the takedown of the American people. This has been the plan right along. So now we're just going to have to wait and watch and write it out. Anyway, U.S. Pentagon is calling in all sorts of people for urgent meetings, not something you see on a Sunday unless things are hugely bad. Now, this is Hal Turner's remarks. Ukraine have asked for urgent military support and calling for UN intervention. What's the UN going to do? The whole operation for the UN was to have it weak, have it not really be able to do anything, have a world war, and then everybody will say, well, this wouldn't have happened. If we had given the UN the troops, if we had given the UN all the armaments of the nations, this never would have happened. And that is probably why and how they rise up to become the final beast power of Daniel chapter 7, the fourth beast. That's who it is. It's the United Nations. Clear as a bell, that's who it is. Anyway, Ukrainian president calling an emergency session of his war cabinet in response to the Kerch Strait. Ukraine artillery boats hit by enemy fire, seized by Russian special forces. That came from a Ukrainian naval statement. Ukrainians are briefing that they are now launching counterfire at other Russian vessels. At 3:27, the Ukrainian Navy says one of the small armored military ships has been hit after Russia opened fire on it in the Black Sea. Ukrainian Air Force and land forces in full combat alert. Possible reserve call-ups. Confirmed now, all Ukrainian naval vessels have departed their bases and put out to sea. That's why I was wondering about the Russian vessels all over, the north, particularly out of Murmansk or whatever they call that.
Murmansk.
Yeah, up there in northern Russia. They probably all put out to sea now. Okay, 3:55. All military and security services in the Ukraine have been mobilized. At 3:41, artillery boats seized. I think I told you about that one. And I'm going to scroll down here. Russia warns the world. Ukrainian naval ships ignored calls to stop, violated Russian state order. Any attack on Russia from Ukraine or its allies, meaning NATO most likely, will result in a dangerous situation. Russia warns Western allies to not interfere in crimes committed by Ukraine or there will be consequences. 4:18 p.m., Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine to declare martial law. At 5:10, Ukraine military communications. Units testing reception with each other for deployment. Okay, they are going to declare a state of war. Word from a contact within Ukraine. This is the most dangerous moment I've seen in Ukraine in years. Tonight, a war that many people in America can only imagine thanks to Hollywood movies teeters on the rather thin edge of becoming real. Tonight in Ukraine, we go to sleep not knowing what tomorrow will bring. 8:15, Ukraine Air Commander Center forward, deployment of 4 Su-27PS of the 831st, evidently fighter wing. They are coming together with MiG-29s. Then the Ukrainian protesters gather in front of the Russian embassy, as Larry said, throwing firebombs. Update 5:36. Emergency action message being transmitted to U.S. military forces worldwide via global high-frequency radio system. Encrypted message contained an extraordinary 120 characters. Doomsday planes, Night Watch, and Looking Glass, both airborne over continental United States as of now. Update 5:48. Ukrainian president supports the decision to impose martial law in Ukraine, has called for an emergency Parliament Congress session to vote on the imposition of martial law. Now, remember all the warnings about martial law and Trump was going to do it? Under the executive orders and under the laws, because of this war now, he can declare martial law at any moment. And we will then have our Constitution and our Bill of Rights fully suspended. So we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully as to what happens. Martial law proposed for 60 days, and only for areas of Ukraine near the sea. Ukrainian deputies are now ordered to get to the Rada, I guess that's their parliament. Session will be in closed mode. The vote will be immediate. Then, in 6:50 Eastern Standard Time, Ukrainian Interior Minister put the State Border Guard Service, National Guard, National Police, State Emergency Services on high alert. At 7:12 p.m., that's the latest I have. Now, maybe there's something else that's come out. Maybe Larry can find it. Secretary of the NSDC of Ukraine said, we are convening the Ukrainian to declare a state of war between the Ukraine and Russia. So that's it. That's the last bulletin that I have on it. What do you think, Larry?
Well, I think you're exactly right, Stuart. Isn't it interesting that today, and actually Hal Turner posted it early this morning, and I put it on the blog, that he had sources that reported that the caravans were going to rush the San Diego border there to try to break through, to breach that border, and that's exactly what happened today. I sent you a video, I don't know if you saw it yet, from the Daily Caller that filmed some of this, and the caravans are literally trying to burst through our border in mass, and they prevented it because they fired heavy tear gas and rubber bullets and prevented them. As a matter of fact, the Mexican police couldn't even stop them. So, and we've shared with people that Trump could declare martial law. Matter of fact, he did shut that border down in that region there. There's no foot crossing. There's no trucks, trains, even cars crossing that border. It's shut down right now at that location. And, we had shared how possibly he could declare martial law because of that. But because of now, this new threat of a war, because we are literally have a treaty with the Ukraine, he could declare a national security alert because of the threat ongoing, and wouldn't even have to worry about the border. He could shut America down and go to martial law immediately. So we're going to have to really watch the next few days and hope, Stuart, that we keep communication communications to where we can literally tell people what's going on and find out what's happening around the world. There are reports in the background that possibly communications might go down for 3 days while things happen behind the scenes. We don't know that, but that's why I've tried to tell people to keep a good shortwave radio on hand, to glean your news wherever you can get it. So, we'll try. What do you think, Stuart?
Yeah, I think, that's the only thing we can do is try. I'm a little bit concerned if the communications goes down. This is following a script, and the 61,000 plus, warrants that have been issued, I just sincerely hope they aren't for the red list, and that this is not a huge betrayal of the American people. I just pray that that's not what's in coming down the pike. But as I go back through all of the scripture, I find no reference to deep state, and I keep hearing from QAnon and all these other folks, yes, we're going to arrest all these people, and we're going to open up, down there in, I call it Gitzoid. Gitzoids. That's for Hillary Clinton. I just don't buy any of that. I think that's all smoke screen. I would pray that it's true. I would pray that Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and all these deep state people face the music. I just don't see it happening. That's not the target of the rich men of the earth. It's not the target of global deep state. The Christians, the Constitutionalists, the Bill of Rights, those that believe in motherhood, apple pie, and Thanksgiving are the ones who are the target according to the Bible. So we're just going to have to wait and ride this through. But if you lose communications or we lose power, remember what it says in the book of Isaiah, get thou into silence and get thou into darkness, O daughter of Babylon. Silence. The communications has gone down. There isn't any. Get them into darkness. Is either they shut down the entire system, or they're going to do an EMP, or maybe North Korea. We can't forget North Korea. It's been really, really quiet of late. But now with this business going on in the Middle East, particularly with Syria and with Israel going after Iran, we could be very easily looking at Isaiah 17 and Daniel 8/11. This can boomerang. And if Iran decides to do this, don't you think for a minute they're going to call their buddy Kimmy Boy in North Korea, who could at the press of a button launch a few missiles over here to distract our attention? This is getting really, really serious. Folks, we're at the end of days. We are really at the precipice of the removal of the church. I'm convinced myself that the church has nothing to do with any of this that's coming up with Israel in the time of Jacob's trouble. And, of course, Jacob is actually Israel. So it's the time of Israel's trouble for their rejection of the Lord Jesus Christ. They got to pay. They got to go through atonement. That's what it's all about. That's what it's for. My point is the church has nothing to do with that. My belief is either we're hidden here out of the way or we're taken out of here. One or the other. The Lord is not going to make war with his own people, but he is going to make war with humanity for their rejection. So at the same time that Israel's trouble is going, you better believe that the trouble for the world is also going full steam. Again, from Hal Turner, 2 hours until border crossings begin. Migrant caravan, shoot first, he's saying. What happened there, Larry? What did they do to ward off this first invasion? What's the latest on that?
Well, the first wave of them that did swarm the border region right there, I guess near San Diego, it's San Ysidro Crossing or whatever they call it. They were repelled with rubber bullets and tear gas. And at the same time, the real light bulbs in America, the left, are down there behind the troops and the Border Patrol that's repelling these people, protesting, the very ones protecting the border.
I guess if I was down there, I'd be lobbing tear gas in both directions and rubber bullets. But you made a point off air. It's a very, very interesting point. Why are they allowing protesters when you're dealing with a national security issue and a border invasion? If this is not all a scam, let's say this is all for real and it's not planned. And the reason I say that, folks, is the timing of all this appears to be very suspicious. Now, the way these guys operate, you would not know that it was a planned event. It looks like for all the world that this just happened. But when you stand back and look at the timing of all of this, how it all works, you better believe this has all been planned. They've been planning it for a long, long time. It has a goal. The United States has to go down or the New World Order cannot come up. Now, if it takes a world war, what do they care? The deep state has long been on record for a huge global depopulation. Go to Deagle.com, which has deep ties to deep state. And what did they say about the United States depopulation? I mean, it was humongous. I think it was by 2025, probably 2/3 of America is already gone, of the American people. Well, now how could that happen? Well, it could be nuclear war, could be biological warfare, could be chemical warfare, could be round up and executed, all of these sort of things. They nibble away at it, and kind of like Hitler did. You know, it took him a while to get the Jews, but he was very systematic about it, and they can be very systematic about this. And I was watching several videos last night, Larry, tremendously interesting videos put out by a Muslim group. What they were warning about was very, very interesting. They said they're not only after us, they're after everybody. And they went into all the things that are going on all over America that nobody knows about. Very fascinating stuff. But anyway, any more news on what's going on? So they repelled these people on the border. Are they going to regroup? Do you know? Is there any more news about that kind of a thing?
Well, the intelligence is seemed to be coming out of the caravans themselves, because apparently not only news people but others have developed intel within those caravans. They're claiming that the ones that are coming behind this first group is armed with possibly weapons, grenades, other implements of war, if you will. And matter of fact, some of the reports indicate further back that there may be even larger hardware to use against our borders. So it appears that, as a matter of fact, that's what's ironic. You've got the mayor of Tijuana, Mexico, of all places, Mexico, saying Trump is right. It's an invasion. But, you know, the American people, I guess, sleep on, but we may get a big wake-up call, maybe even in the morning. Who knows?
I think we're going to, and I noticed that the UN, they just recently passed some sort of thing on immigration. And then I was hearing somebody this morning was saying that you cannot any longer criticize the United Nations or their immigration plans, that no nation has a right to borders, that these people have every right to invade any country, anywhere, anytime. The United Nations has gone insane. And this is all part of their Agenda 21, 30, 50. And I believe it's probably a little too late to be standing up. The American people were sleeping. They were comatose while all of this infiltration of Agenda 21 was taking place all over the United States of America, down to the smallest township levels. They were infiltrating with their UN propaganda, and nobody did anything about it. I produced a video documentary on it. It's called Unfriendly Fire. It's on my Angel Fall 923. Nobody's watching it. It's all about how the UN is taking over the United States. And, of course, they're using China and everybody else to do it. And I specifically think they're using Islam as one of their weapons. And that's another thing you cannot criticize. You cannot criticize in these strong cities. Patty did some research on it for me on these strong cities, and they removed it, I think, from what she said, but it was in plain sight that to criticize Islam in any of these strong cities was a criminal offense, basically. You could be arrested for it. So what we have here is a multi-pronged attack against the United States and the people thereof. And this border thing, the timing is just a little too suspicious with what's going on now in Ukraine, possibly war with NATO. I want to get into that, Larry. If NATO responds or Russia takes out a NATO vessel, under the laws of NATO, do they not have to go to war?
Well, that's what it seems to say. Any attack on one NATO member is an attack on all NATO members. And, of course, we've recently seen Donald Trump, who really is a lot smarter than most of these turkeys out there running things, especially
yes,
Europe.
He is.
He's been trying to disentangle us a little bit in a certain fashion away from NATO because they don't take care of their own borders. So now we begin to see why. It's because you can get your own country into a fighting, shooting war when you wasn't involved. You don't even have to be involved. And what's
NATO originally was just kind of a defensive operation. It wasn't. Now it's very much a offensive operation, and Russia. Putin knows all about NATO. He's probably read Zabrinsky, Brezhnev, or whatever he calls himself. I never can remember his name, but he wrote a book about surrounding Russia and choking her off. Well, Putin is not going to allow that to happen, and this may be his response to it. And if we think we're going to beat Russia, they ought to read their Bible. Russia is going to destroy the United States, and the war is on. And we could be on the precipice of it. I hope not. I pray not. But we're getting awful close to something really, really big. Because we've had flare-ups before, and then it all backs off and cooler heads prevail. Hopefully that's what's going to happen here. Here's one I want you to comment on. WikiLeaks. Julian Assange is under arrest and in Virginia. Arraignment on Tuesday. Now, this is Hal Turner, and there's no way, I guess, we could vet it. But what's your take on that?
Well, that's very interesting. I couldn't vet it either, but I do know that we have been wanting him, and Deep State was really going crazy wanting Assange over here. And apparently if the report's right, Americans went to the Ecuadorian embassy, and the Ecuadorian embassy, if the report is right, delayed the lawyers for Assange, and so the U.S. took him into custody. And you know how they have these secret flights, transit flights. They flew him to Virginia, and he's in a facility in Virginia under indictment, and appears to be going to be quietly, if you will, arraigned on, Tuesday. Now, we'll just have to see. I can understand why they're trying to keep it quiet. It's interesting timing, Stuart, because it appears that Mueller now is working his way to coming against Donald Trump through Jerome Corsi into Roger Stone and trying to get to Trump that way, and also is working
Alex
his way
Jones,
through Roger Stone, which connects a little bit to possibly WikiLeaks and Assange, and they're after Trump. That's what the whole deal is. They're after Trump, but Assange is part of the way to get there. And if anybody thinks Mueller's through, some of the data I'm reading, he ain't even got started good yet. This coup is well underway in America, and Trump may have to go to martial law to even survive.
Yeah, that's what, the Mueller, that whole thing is just so totally unconstitutional. It's totally lawless. He has no business. In fact, Mueller should be in prison himself for what he's doing. But you're right. Nobody on deep state side, like Hillary or Billary or any of those guys, are in prison. It's all part of the far right. Jerome Corsi is a right. Alex Jones, they say, is probably going to be targeted as well. What is he? He's a conservative right, or at least poses as that. So on and on and on it goes. Before we run out of time, though, what is this deal with Aleppo? They've run 2 false flag fake gas attacks there to get United States into a major war, or the excuse to go in and topple Assad. What's your take on what's going on there? Do you think this is another false flag, or what is this about?
Well, I find it rather interesting that if you put some dots together, and you put together the dots that Israel was not able to make attacks on Iranians in Syria because of the S-300s, and then suddenly we have the U.S. Air Force and also naval units, the strike group in the Mediterranean, which involved a specialized vessel that uses electronic jamming that can jam S-300 systems, put them out of commission, and this occurs. And then possibly reports begin to come out that Israel is now having a window to attack Damascus, and then suddenly the very location where you and I over the last couple of months, Stuart, warned people about the UK sending a load of this chemical weapon stuff to the very rebels, and it being delivered. And remember the white helmets that were involved that were even talking about, they were literally bragging about another gas attack that was going to occur. And we warned about that. And then now, suddenly, at the same time that the U.S. took over the airspace over Syria and Israel has been given a window to attack Damascus, we have this sudden gas attack that occurred in Aleppo. And according to the Russians and the Syrians, it was done by the U.S. and NATO-backed rebels in Israel. So what do you think? And hey, Stuart, I wanted to tell you this too. I know we're running out of time shortly, but what's the odds that today Rouhani, the minister there or president in Iran, just came out and is calling all Muslims now to prepare to attack U.S. missile bases and go after U.S. Forces? And what's the odds that he would come out and make that announcement? Does that give a call possibly to Daniel 8?
Yes. And the timing of all this is just so suspicious. I mean, here we have the Aleppo attack. We have the Ukraine situation. We have the USA striking the S-300. So obviously they did their research on it, know how to take it out now. We're headed into a war and bad times. And the other thing I want, before I forget, folks, there's a fellow that said that the stock market would be very erratic starting around the 8th through the 11th, somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly. There were several reports. One, I think, said the 8th. The other said on the 11th. And, of course, the stock market took a dive, and then it's come back a little bit, but it's lost a lot of points. And if you see tomorrow if the banks are open and you see the market take a dive, go get some cash out of your accounts because you may need it. If everything goes black, we don't know how long it'll go black for. It could go black indefinitely. I mean, if I was going to take America out, I would get rid of her grid. I'd take out her electricity. That'd be the only thing you'd have to do. You could take out the electricity and sit back and wait. There was a report issued out of Washington that said within a year, 90% of the American people would be dead anyway, because they're going to kill each other. You have no idea. The military ran some operations on people and how they react. And one of the operations they did, they got volunteers, and I think they left them without water for 3 or 4 days. And after the third day, they were like animals they'd kill to get a drink of water. And on food, they waited, I think it was like the 12th day before they became animals and would kill to get food. So this is going to be horrendous. When God judges a nation, he doesn't fool around with it. And we have been given the finger to the Lord. The Christians have likewise been given the finger to the Lord right along, mocking everything he stands for. And we're going to pay the price for it. And I don't know what to tell people, other than to get under the wings of the Lord and be protected. That's the only protection you're going to have. It's just too bad that it has come to this. And anyway, Turner says the militants who unleashed these chemical weapons have now been positively identified as U.S. NATO-backed moderates. Number of civilians injured in the alleged, if it's even real, is numbered at 34. So it just seems strange, folks, that all of this stuff is coming together, the attack on the border, the Ukraine situation. Now we have Aleppo, and we have all of these things just coming together. And by the way, some idiot in England made a comment to the Russians. I can't remember. Do you remember what that comment was? But anyway, the reply of the Soviets was, we'll put you back basically into the Dark Age. And England will no longer be a viable nation, I think is somewhat how they worded it. What was that about, Larry? Do you remember? That was just the other day, too, I think, 2 or 3 days ago.
Well, there's been a lot of British and French and U.S. Interference in Syria. And at the same time, Russia, if you'll remember, over a number of months now, has been flying their nuclear bombers very, very close to the U.K.
Yes.
And also sending some of their submarines and warships right up against the shore almost. I mean, really close in the channel. And they've been warning the U.K. for some time, and there are reports in the background that they have a plan to render the U.K. useless in a coming war.
This is the headline. This is sort your fall, but a lot of times you can vet this later on. Russian shock move prepares for 20-minute war to nuke United Kingdom into global irrelevance. So, yes, that says it all, doesn't it, Larry? Pretty much. And they can do the same thing to the United States, unfortunately. We just don't know it, or most people don't know it. But the Bible says that's exactly what they're going to do. And so we got to get ready, folks. Prepare as best you can. And Larry, thanks a lot for coming on. If anything breaks loose, we'll do an emergency update. Just stay tuned. Get water so that you've got water in case the power goes out or the communications goes out. If everything goes dark, look out, because that's roundup time, basically. We hope that it's not the red list people. We just don't. They're going after all of the conservatives. Nobody on the left is ever being touched by Mueller and all the rest of them. It's only the right. Anyway, thanks a lot, Larry. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Take care of yourselves. Heads up. Your redemption definitely is drawing nigh at hand. Remember, Hanukkah is just a couple of days away, and Hanukkah does have, I guess we could say, relevance to the rapture of the church. Anyway, good night, everyone.